Good morning and welcome to the Frontiers of Knowledge segment of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. We are conversing with the seven wonders, and one of the wonders often count is the leaning power of Pisa. And it's a wonder tilted at 5 degree, 54-meter high. It is a thing to wonder at. But when we look at it, we find that most of the wonders have other similar monuments, buildings, better than that, but they have not been counted because there was no exposure. Now we have seen that in Varanasi in India there is a temple which is a bigger marvel and a bigger wonder than Leaning Tower of Pisa. This temple is near the Mani Karkar Ghat, that is on the banks of the river Ganges. The name of the temple is Ratneshwar Mandir. And while leaning power of Pisa is inclined at 5 degree, this temple, Ratneshwar temple, is inclined at 9 degree. Not only that, while the height of leaning power tower is 54 meter, this Ratneshwar temple is 74 meters, 20-meter more, and yet it's not counted as one of the wonders of the world. Well, I'll leave it to you, but I thought this interesting fact would definitely interest you and widen the horizons of your awareness. Is, as a matter of fact, a negative information which is interesting, which is informative, and also shows that it is more the policies of the governments and the exposure that those places get, which get them counted and neglected, unpublicized matters are just languishing, and it always happens. But nevertheless, now people can say that the leaning power of Pisa is a marvel, but there is a bigger, better, and more marvelous monument in India. This being there, we are amazed that how our scientists are creating wealth out of rubbish, out of garbage. The biggest problem with our batteries is their disposal. They are huge environmental issue. There have been proposals to throw them into space, but now University of St. Louis in Washington, the scientists over there have converted these old, useless, outmoded batteries into, believe me, bricks. These cheap iron oxide rich red bricks with specific vapors that form the polymers enable the bricks to become electrical charge storage devices. So, beauty. Not only are they bricks, but they can be used to store energy. We are aware that the bricks are the oldest known building material, and that information dates back to thousands of years. Now, a team of engineers and chemists have found a way to transform an ordinary house brick into a pseudo battery. So, it's a converse effort. You use battery to make a brick, and then you use a brick to convert it into a battery. So these bricks from the houses conduct and store electricity. They are powerful enough to illuminate an LED light bulb and cost about $3 to make. Pretty cheap. But the best thing is the interchangeability. As a matter of fact, I'm intrigued by the idea of adding value to things that are inexpensive, the things that are affordable, the things we kind of take for granted. Now, this brick battery relies on reddish pigment known as iron oxide or rust, which gives red bricks their color. So, those red bricks can be used. The scientists pumped the bricks with several gases that react with the iron oxide and produced a network of plastic fibers. And these plastic microscopic fibers coat the empty spaces inside the brick and they conduct energy. So this was published a couple of days back in the journal Nature Communications. And I was really intrigued that the old houses built with the red bricks can be the storehouses of batteries, and the old batteries can be used as a building material, the casing and everything. You know, this is something which is really the ingenuity of man, but then not here. On the one side, we are converting the bricks to batteries, storage, problem solved, convert using batteries as bricks. And then comes the biggest problem, the global warming bugbear. The biggest problem people are facing is the growing temperature every year. And now the scientists have developed a new paint. It's a new type of white paint. White paints are plenty. But this white paint has a potential to cool buildings and reduce the reliance on air conditioning. So much so that it is able to reflect 95% of the sunlight. The sun falls, the light is reflected, and the temperature is reduced by 1.7 degrees Celsius, which is comparable to ambient air conditions. And the researchers who are involved in this, they that this impact is achieved by adding different size particles of carb, calcium carbonate. Let's not deny that buildings of all sorts, and the higher the building, the bigger the problem. They're the biggest source of CO2 emissions. And I was reading the report of World Green Building Council. They say that the lighting, the heating, and the cooling of the building is responsible for 28% of the global carbon dioxide emission. And that is because heating and cooling of buildings is mainly powered by coal, oil, or gas. And in Europe, around 75% of this energy need comes from the fossil fuels. So that adds to the emission, which creates problems. Now, Purdue University in USA, they use the infrared cameras to compare the cooling performance of the white paint sample. As a matter of fact, it is for decades that the scientists have been trying to come up with ideas to increase the efficiency of cooling and heating. A number of reflective paints were developed for outside the homes and offices that reflect away the sunlight. But none was able to reflect to lower the temperature lower than the ambient conditions. This is the first time. And this paint developed Purdue University, as I said, reduces the temperature of ambient condition by 1.7 degree. In one experiment, they put the painted surface outside in direct sunlight. The surface cooled 1.7 degree below the ambient temperature, and during night it cooled up to 10 degrees Celsius below the ambient temperature. 10 degrees Celsius. So you don't need air conditioning at all. You can shut off the air conditioning. This is a significant amount of cooling power from the majority of the air conditioning needs for the typical building. That is something worth following up. I was sitting with some people the other day, and one of them remarked that he had gone to synagogue and saw the students, the Jewish children, reading Torah, and they were moving front and back. And I said, look here, that's not only there, even in madrasas or in Maulvis, the Muslim kids study, they have a book, the Quran, in their hands, and they move back and forth. Why do they shake like that? And it's only in the Jewish and the Islamic students you can find this, that the students, when they are learning, praying, they are moving front and back. So I talked to a couple of people. I did my research and I found in Yiddish, they call it shuckling. This movement back and front is called shuckling. And then it is seen that is the best way to understand. I mean, it's metaphorical. This shows that the soul is like a flame and the prayer is like a wind. So the wind moves you back and forth. You are going forward, coming backward, going forward. So this is the wind moving, wind of the prayer. And as a matter of fact, it is also another analogy. They say it's like drawing water from the ground. You lean forward, then straight up again, then lean forward and straight up again. The purpose is to bring more and more water from the ground. Here, the water is the knowledge. So you get the knowledge from the book, take it in, absorb it, then again go and take it back. Whether it really happens or it doesn't. But then there is a theological base for that. The theological base is that Torah, in the Jewish religion, is likened to water. Water comes from above as rain. So is the Torah. The Torah comes from above, from the higher to the lower for the student. And shuckling back and forth, moving back and forth, is a sign of intensity, effort, reaching, seeking, desiring. And then, according to a psychologist, gently swing from side to side is usually accompanied by a slight inside a smile and a little bit of light. But when you make back and forth, you are all the time attentive on what you are reading, and there's a synergy between the book that you are reading, your side, and the absorption. The moment you go back, they say it percolates down to your soul and becomes a part of your psyche. Interesting. Whether it's 100% right or not, I cannot say. But one thing is sure, it is a subject for the psychologists and the body scientists to study whether it is really so. And if it's really so, why should not be adopted at other places? We often smile when we see these kids in madrasas, synagogues, reading and moving up and front and back. But then there has been a theological reason which is yet to be corroborated. by scientific research. But it's quite interesting. And now, before we end, we are conversed with the elections in USA and the fight between the conservatives and the liberals is a perpetual one, going all the time, since the day of the history. So, but then now it has come to knowledge that the brains of the people who are conservative and the liberal, they have some real differences. And the first time it was done was when there was a debate between Buckley Jr. and Liberator Gore Vidal. And these two members of the opposing intellectual elite show that the people living through troubled times show the different attitudes, and then that attitude because of their brain cells. You are not a conservative or a liberal by your environment, by your upbringing, but it is because your brain is inclined to do so. So the research has shown that conservatives desire security, predictability, and authority much more than the liberals do. And the liberals are more comfortable with novelty, nuance, and complexity. So they are now putting scanners, scanning the brains of the conservatives and the liberals, and they have seen the difference, especially in the areas that process social and emotional information. And the volume of gray matter are the neural cell bodies making up the anterior cortex, this area which detects errors and resolves conflict. And this area is larger than liberals. And the area which is important for regulating emotions, called amygdala, is larger in the case of conservatives. So the brain started processing the word differently, and our differences in politics approach, not because we have been attuned to it, but because our brains are framed like that. So this is a field which is emerging, critical neuroscience. This critical neuroscience has begun to move beyond the basic structure and the functional brain differences between people of different ideological perceptions and persuasions. And now it's a more nuanced investigation. So when somebody is conservative, you can believe that his emotional quotient is high. And if somebody is liberal, his cortex is bigger. So there is a scientific reason for a person being either conservative or being liberal. So that is for today. And we meet next time, next week, same time, with new nuggets of knowledge and information. Thank you.